Under pressure. Donald got there in the air. Intercepted by...
You know, generally, consistency in the NFL is a good thing. But when it comes to consistently throwing games away when you need to win the most, well, then maybe a little more inconsistency would be appreciated. In the NFL, a team is generally only as good as its quarterback is. And for some teams, even very talented teams, that means painful limitations on how successful its season can actually be. Even if the quarterback is able to put up good counting numbers and string together a number of wins, if they can't get it done when the pressure is on, well, it's gonna doom an organization. So today, let's take a look at 10 quarterbacks who are guaranteed to choke the game away when it matters most.
I'm just pissed I let those guys down, and really just too many turnovers.
Let's start things off with now Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff, who infamously choked in what was, and may ultimately end up being, the most important game of his career. That's right, the 2019 Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. After leading one of the top-ranked offenses in the league all season, the then 24-year-old quarterback posted his second lowest passer rating of the year, and his offense was held to just 3 points when the lights were shining at their brightest. And in case you were wondering what his worst outing of that year was, well, it came against the New Orleans Saints in a game that was critical in trying to acquire the NFC's top seed. During that game, he completed just 20 of 44 passes and surrendered 4 interceptions. The counting numbers weren't just a result of the opposing defenses taking him to task either. He had time and he had guys open, and he just flat out missed them repeatedly. And of course, made terrible decisions when he was under pressure. Goff himself even admitted that he let his team down, saying after the game, "It hurts me knowing how well our defense played against that team, against Tom, and us not holding up our end of the bargain. It's our job to score points, and we didn't do that tonight." Goff's playoff numbers across the board leave much to be desired. In 5 starts, he has thrown 4 touchdowns and completed under 60% of his passes. So, needless to say, Jared Goff is not exactly the guy that you'll want to have with the ball in his hand when the pressure is cranked all the way up. Kinda like another middle-of-the-road QB who has cost his team in countless big moments, including in the Super Bowl, with untimely blunders. That's right, talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. Last year, the San Francisco 49ers were just 1/2 away from making it to their second Super Bowl in 3 years, and even held a 10-point lead in the third quarter over the eventual champion Rams. But they were unable to close out Los Angeles as they came storming back to take a 20-17 lead. And even with all that, the Niners still had a chance to win in the closing minutes. That is, until Jimmy threw a horrible pass that was intercepted by Rams linebacker Trevor Howard, sealing the game shut. Or there was the infamous overthrow back in the 2020 Super Bowl against the Chiefs, when Garoppolo had Emmanuel Sanders wide open down the field for what looked like a surefire touchdown and missed him by a solid 5 yards. This was another classic Jimmy G showing. He started the game 18 for 22 and somehow finished 20 for 31 for just 219 yards and only 1 touchdown to 2 picks. Whenever it matters most, Jimmy loves to turn right back into a pumpkin. At least Jimmy J and Jared Goff are good enough to get to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, there's a couple of crop of guys that would choke in high-pressure situations long before their team would ever even sniff the Super Bowl. You know, someone like Dak Prescott. Just think about it. Not only is the Dallas Cowboys quarterback 1-3 in the postseason, he also simply has not performed up to par during those games. Last year, the Cowboys were one of the top offenses in the league all year long, and they came out absolutely flat against the 49ers. Dak threw for just 254 yards, threw 1 touchdown, and 1 costly interception. And he also had this abomination of a decision in the closing seconds of the game. The old run it up the middle and slide with no timeouts play. Brilliant. Obviously, outside a handful of organizations who have that next-level quarterback, most teams would still happily welcome Dak into their quarterback room. But they'd be doing so knowing that, more than likely, when it matters most, Dak will ultimately let his team down. Kinda like one of his fellow NFC East quarterbacks that has since journeyed on to Minnesota, Kirk Cousins. Ever since Cousins established himself as a legit starter in the league back in 2015, there has been an ongoing discussion about his ability to deliver in the big moments. It all started with his inability to perform during primetime games in the regular season, and it has evolved ever since. And the narrative has really taken on a life of its own. But to be honest with you, while many of these types of narratives can be a bit punitive in nature and frame stats out of context, in Cousins' case, he routinely underperforms not just in pressure situations, but also in games against better teams. This has been evident dating back to his days in Washington, where he posted a 173 winning percentage against teams that were over 500. And while that has improved a little bit, the numbers still leave a lot to be desired. During his first 4 seasons with the Vikings, Cousins won just 6 of 27 games against winning teams, which for a guy with his kind of counting numbers is preposterously bad. I guess just goes to show you that Kirk Cousins is not the kind of quarterback you want leading the charge when your team is in a high-leverage must-win situation, especially not against a good team like you'd likely be facing in the playoffs. It's actually somewhat reminiscent of what we saw from, dare I say, peak Andy Dalton during his heyday with the Bengals, during which he really earned a reputation for himself as a choker. In Dalton's case, he was generally pretty solid during the regular season and didn't have that same primetime bugaboo that Cousins has been plagued by, but once the postseason rolled around, it would get ugly quick. The 3-time Pro Bowler is 0-4 in the playoffs, and his numbers are staggeringly bad. He's completed just 55.7% of his passes during those games and thrown just 1 touchdown compared to 6 interceptions. Really, just his entire game would fall apart. He failed to clear 300 passing yards in 3 of the 4 playoff games that he's played in, and in the 1 game that he did, his Bengals got mopped up pretty good by the Chargers, 27-10. So most of the yards he accumulated were really just garbage time stats. Luckily for Dalton, sort of, he's no longer really viewed as a true franchise quarterback. So at least the expectations are off him. And plus, with the way that the Saints are looking this year, even in that terrible NFC South, he doesn't have to worry about disappointing the fans come playoff time, because he'll be sitting at home on his couch for the entire thing.
In many ways, what Andy Dalton went through in Cincinnati is similar to what Ryan Tannehill is now experiencing with the Tennessee Titans. Tannehill is essentially a complementary piece that, when everything else is going well, can look really good in that machine. After all, he does have Derrick Henry to hand the ball off to, and the bruising running back draws quite a bit of attention from opposing defenses, which really opens up the play action for Tannehill. But when the going gets tough, whether it be in high-leverage regular season games or come postseason time, Tannehill gets exposed. And it seems like every time that the Titans really need their quarterback to make a play, he is utterly unable to deliver. Think about the Titans' last 2 postseason runs with Tannehill at the helm. They have been one and done both times, and during those 2 games, he's averaging around 190 yards per and 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions. That is not the kind of performance you need from your quarterback when you're trying to make a deep postseason run. And to make matters worse for Tannehill, it always seems like his mistakes come at the worst possible moment, and either kill any momentum his team was gaining or seal their fate entirely.
Moving on to a younger crop of choke artists in the making, how about Kyler Murray? Kyler earned Offensive Rookie of the Year honors in 2019 and followed that up with back-to-back Pro Bowl appearances, which intuition would suggest is a pretty good start to a career. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the gaudy statistics that he's compiled along the way were more or less empty. It's gotten pretty ugly for old K1. I mean, he put together one of the worst postseason debuts that the league has ever seen last season. 19 for 34 for 137 yards and 2 picks, all en route to a 34-11 defeat that frankly wasn't even close as that blowout of a score indicates. Woof, Kyler. Regardless of whether it's a horrendous interception or taking a poorly timed 10-yard sack, with Murray under center, it is all but guaranteed that the game will get choked away. It isn't much better for Giants fans watching Daniel Jones or Jags fans watching Trevor Lawrence. Both those guys were high first-round picks, with Jones being taken 6th overall in 2019 and Lawrence being taken 1st overall in 2021. But neither of them have shown any sort of propensity for being a go-to guy in crunch time. Think about Jones' outing against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving of 2022. You know, when he missed a wide-open Saquon Barkley in the flat to convert a pivotal 4th and 1? Yeah, it's those kinds of mistakes in high-pressure situations that have real heavily limited Jones from establishing himself as the franchise guy in New York. Though Lawrence has started to show some signs of improvement down the stretch of games, it is much of the same for him. Missing guys, taking bad sacks, all the things you don't want your franchise quarterback to do when the game is on the line. But for some reason, it seems like Lawrence, kind of like Jones, is always guaranteed to choke the game away once the pressure gets turned on. Last but not least, we have Matt Ryan, one of the first QBs that probably came to mind when you saw this video. There are a few athletes more synonymous with the dreaded 6-letter designation choker than the former Atlanta Falcons Pro Bowl quarterback. And while many know him for his role in the infamous 28-3 Super Bowl against Brady and the Patriots, Ryan's choke artist reputation actually dates back long before the most improbable Super Bowl collapse of all time. After being selected 3rd overall out of Boston College, Ryan started off his career hot out the gates, winning 11 games and throwing for 3,440 yards and 16 touchdowns compared to just 11 interceptions. From there on out, this was essentially the floor of what you could expect from Ryan. He posted a winning record in each of his first 5 seasons and put up extremely solid numbers across the board. The only problem was, well, when the season turned over and the Falcons entered the postseason, all of a sudden, things always seemed to sour for both the team and Matt Ryan as an individual. He was 0-3 in his first 3 playoff starts, failing to eclipse 200 passing yards in each game. And he threw 4 interceptions to just 3 touchdowns across the 3 outings. The worst of which came against the Giants in 2012 when they lost 24-2 in a downright humiliating fashion. And when it finally looked like Ryan was progressively starting to exercise his postseason demons, winning 1 game in 2013, then 2 in 2017, well, it all came crashing down in a fantastic fashion, and Ryan sealed his legacy as an all-time choke artist by blowing what looked like a surefire Super Bowl win and a 28-3 lead against the Patriots. But which NFL quarterback do you think is the most guaranteed to choke away a game when his team needs him the most? Was there anyone that we missed? Let us know in the comments section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.